and welcome to the Red Barrels podcast. It's episode 28, and it's a news one. We're back on the news. We're still doing the weekly thing. I don't know how long I'm going to keep saying that we're still doing the weekly new order. At some point,
8 years in.
At some point, yeah,
Still doing the weekly thing.
Yeah.
Still doing it.
But it is true that we are still doing the weekly thing, and this is the news episode. And you heard a bit about them, a bit of them. I'm Alex. You know that. Who else is here?
I'm Sophie. You know that. Who else is here?
And I'm also here. I am Ed. It's great to have you back along for episode 28. Feeling plenty great. Am I right, guys?
Kind of felt like Ed's being a bit
bars.
It feels like he's being a bit obsequious to our audience. Well, I say sometimes they've got to be kept in line. Sometimes they've got to be kept in line. Work out who's in charge here, who's on top, and the answer is us. And that's how our socialist podcast works. And we are a
my
socialist.
favorite thing about socialism is I love hierarchy.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great. It's great.
Hierarchy
We love
is my
it.
favorite thing.
I love it. The pyramid's my favorite shape.
I love pyramids.
Me up on the top doing a little jig. So this is the news episode. We've got some news topics, but before that, just a little PSA. If you listened to last episode, you may have heard me saying that on YouTube, they sometimes, actually, I should say this was 2 episodes ago, because I said that in the news episode. Don't get at me, Time fans. But we talked about how YouTube has a tendency to private our videos, making them unwatchable or listenable, and even more than just normally how they're unwatchable and unlistenable. And, I suggested that if you've noticed that's happened, you should get in touch. However, obviously that information will be most useful for people on YouTube, and inevitably, YouTube did actually private that video. So quite likely you didn't hear that if you are on YouTube. So we're going to try again, and hopefully this time YouTube will play ball and not mess with us. So again,
yeah, YouTube, don't mess with us.
Assuming you hear this one and it isn't privated, in the future, and you listen to us on YouTube and there is no episode when you think there should be an episode, drop us a line on social media at Red Barrels Pod on Twitter, at Red Barrels Podcast or bsky.social on Blue Sky, and let us know, and I will immediately just go into the back end.
We'll make sure that YouTube is sleeping with the fishes. That's what we're going to do.
Yeah, we're going to turn into 1930s gangsters.
Yeah.
And
pulling up my sleeves. You can't see it. You can't see it, podcast listeners, but I'm pulling my sleeves up, getting ready for a fight.
This is Sophie's audition for a reboot of The Sopranos. It's
I'm walking.
She's got it in the bag. We're going to say goodbye to her. She's going to be too famous for us.
She's
on
having
the
a
new
mouthful
Sopranos.
of gabagool.
Count on it.
The gabagool. Exactly. She's a natural. But we are going to have the news. But before we have the news, there's a treat. And that's right, it's time for another game of Character Class Consciousness. That's right.
Yeah.
My co-host's favorite of all things to happen on this podcast when we play a game. You love that.
Yeah, we love games.
It's the only thing I love more than hierarchies is games on the podcast.
Yeah.
And if someone would ever make a game about hierarchy on this podcast, my God, you would weep.
Whatever. We're playing Character Class Consciousness. And as always, and I'm sure our listeners are very well versed in what that actually entails, that means I'm going to name 2 characters from video games, and my 2 co-hosts have to determine which one of them is more of a proletariat. So who's it going to be? This time, it's going to be the eternal duo of Joel Miller, a.k.a. Joel from The Last of Us, versus, and this is going to be heated, Crash Bandicoot.
Oh,
now,
my God.
I'm going to reveal a spoiler here, in next week's episode when we talk about games. Ed's game is going to be, what's it going to be, Ed?
Crash Bandicoot.
Yes,
What?
This is a complete coincidence. I was not aware that that was going to be the game he was discussing until we started recording. And I had this all
I
planned
can't
out.
stress the amount to which we don't talk about this podcast beforehand.
So suffice to say, Ed's got maybe an unfair advantage here, which means he better get it right. He better get it right. So, who's it going to be? Joel or Crash? Who's prolier than thou?
Oh, I like that one.
So I guess I don't know much about Joel because I've looked up the Wikipedia page. I've never played The Last of Us, and I haven't watched the TV show. I watched up until that really cute gay episode, and I was like, that's actually it for me. I don't need anything else from this TV show.
Well, I think from that you can.
I think it went downhill from there.
I think well, you didn't see after that, so you don't know.
No, I didn't, but I know.
All right.
Literally, how do you beat that in terms of cinema? Fantastic piece of cinema. It's just that singular episode. I've spoken to people who are diehard fans of The Last of Us TV show, and they're like, fair. That's a fair assessment.
Yeah, I mean, that was the best episode. Like,
it's the
there's
best
no question
episode.
about that.
Well, I've got heterodox opinions of The Last of Us TV show.
Doesn't get better than that. Doesn't it get better than that?
My point is here that I think the episodes up to then will give you a fair view of Joel Miller's, class background. So I think you are still well suited.
So Joel was a carpenter.
Yes.
And had ambitions of starting his own business.
Yes.
Never actually did before things went to shit, but he was a carpenter.
I think it's unclear if he did start his own business. He was a carpenter. He worked with his brother. So was it a kind of a family business? He has a book called Everything You Need to Know About Creating a Startup. That makes it unambiguous if he did create the startup or not. Ed, what about you? What's your thoughts? You're the Crash expert here.
I have played both of these games.
I hadn't necessarily said it was. I was just sort of saying
in the last 6 months. So I guess this is quite timely for me.
Very well done.
There you go.
Comparing these naughty dogs, if you will.
Yes, actually, I didn't occur to me they're from the same company.
They're both Naughty Dog.
They are.
Go into it.
My instinct, and I'm just talking out loud. I'm just saying what comes into my head. Is that when I was playing as Joel, I got the impression that he was more of a petty bourgeois kind of chap. I thought
that's my instinct
that
as well.
a lot of zombie style stuff, and I did write an early version of a Last of Us episode, but then Alex told me I couldn't do it until I've played Last of Us 2. So I'm sure I will revisit that.
I don't remember saying
not in a hierarchical way. Not in a hierarchical way. In a one.
If you want to play Last of Us, you can play Last of Us, man.
No, yeah, I have played Last of Us, but I mean, you assured me that I'd be best off playing Last of Us 2 before speaking on it, and I take your advice very very to heart. But anyway,
I don't understand that.
It was at TWT. Anyway, it doesn't matter. The point is, I got the impression that it was meant to be, as like many zombie stories are, kind of almost like a modern day continuation of the Wild West thematic. That's how I experienced that game, and I could talk more about that when I cover Last of Us eventually. But in that analysis, then Joel is essentially a stand-in for a cowboy who is fighting off, hordes that you're not meant to view as fully human. And again, from that analysis, I think a cowboy is not someone that in the sort of popular imagination isn't someone that works for someone else. They're someone that, they have their own freedom. It's self-directed. They're sort of living the American dream in like a very specific kind of way, like unencumbered libertarian style freedom. So I think Joel is a sort of stand-in for that kind of petty bourgeois kind of, and not like a rich petty bourgeois, more like a free peasant in some respects, but like petty bourgeois style figure. So I would be reluctant to say that he was the most proletarian. On the other hand, I would say I don't feel like I got much information from having just played the first Crash Bandicoot game about Crash's class. Nonetheless, I think I'm going to have to back Crash on this one. I think he's the most proletarian. I appreciate that he was battling for the liberation of his girlfriend in that game. I respect that, and that gives him prolo points for me.
I think I would actually also back Crash because I was voicing my sort of thinking aloud earlier about Joel because I don't really know him that much. I was confirming information about him, but yeah, I think I would also probably back Crash. Joel does kind of have petit bourgeois vibes. Also, he has a treadmill in his room before the apocalypse, and I'm like, I don't know. I feel like you gotta have, I don't know, some money to have a treadmill in your room, but maybe I just have distorted views of wealth. But anyway. Yeah, I don't know. I think I'm looking at Crash's Wikipedia page because I'm also like, what the fuck? What the fuck is Crash's deal? What's Crash's deal?
What is Crash's deal?
What is Crash's deal? It's genetically engineered, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure, strictly speaking, that he's ever had a job. I guess
No,
he's
that's the
more like
thing.
a member of the lumpen proletariat than he is a
It
proletariat.
doesn't seem to,
But
it doesn't seem to earn any money, but it also doesn't seem to be enslaved in any way. So he seems to have his freedom, but he also doesn't earn any money. So yeah, I think I'd have to probably go for Crash.
Put us out of our misery, Alex. What's the
Crash.
objectively correct answer according to
Well,
you?
I'm a generous man. You both know that.
That's true.
And sometimes I just got to throw you a bone with a really easy one. And this is it. Yeah, it's Crash. Not only is Joel, I think, arguably a business owner, maybe, as a carpenter. He certainly has quite a nice house, we see, before the apocalypse. After the apocalypse, he is a smuggler, which again is his own business that he's effectively running, although perhaps outside of the general capitalist system, although they live in a society where capitalism, I think they've largely reduced to mercantilism, I think at that point, you'd say. But Crash, meanwhile, is, genetically engineered, and I believe he escaped from the engineering clutches of Cortex.
It's true.
Dr. Cortex. But most importantly, he is an Eastern Barred Bandicoot, which specifically means that he is an Aboriginal Australian. He is a person of colour and a marginalised identity, and he is fighting for his rights. So how can we not give it to Crash Bandicoot?
There you go.
Yeah.
The wokest of the two characters, I guess.
I still feel like I've got egg on my face, even though you said that I'm right. Just something about your tone made me feel like you were telling me I was wrong.
Yeah.
I don't know what you want from me. What do you want from me? What do you want from me, man?
All I want, and I don't think this is asking too much, is constant praise and veneration. Sorry. Anyway.
You guys get that from me off air. Come on.
Off air. But on air, you become this harsh, cruel taskmaster. To our porridge.
Well, speaking of
Crash apparently was supposed to be like a mascot. I guess they initially sort of designed him to be like a mascot in the same way that like Sonic is a mascot or like Mario is a mascot.
Pretty mascot-y.
And I guess he would have been sort of like competing against them, but then they kind of decided that mascots weren't very important in video games anymore, so that kind of became less of an emphasis. So, and a mascot would be very working class. So that's also fair if he was employed as a mascot.
Also, I'm pretty confident.
That's a pretty shitty job to have.
I'm pretty confident that he's becomes a professional racing driver in at least some of his later games. So, that's
true.
That's work for a wage, isn't it?
That's true, actually, yeah. Benjamin Button. Not Benjamin Button. What's his name?
Lewis Hamilton?
F1 driver Button. That's the only one I know.
Jensen Button.
But there you go. Jensen Button.
That's quite different from Benjamin Button. Unless Jensen Button has some hidden facts about him that he hasn't been getting into. That is freakish.
The thing.
It's
the
really
only
none of
reason
our
I know
business.
Button. The only reason I knew Button as an F1 driver is because my family used to support him when I was a kid because we had a dog whose name was Button.
Oh, I see.
So that's the only thing I remember about him. Button, the Formula One driver.
That makes so much sense. Yeah. Definitely.
Mm-hmm. It's not a solidified name in my head.
Anyway, speaking of harsh taskmasters as we were before, let's get on to the news and hear about some of those. First up, it's going to be Ed.
Yeah, well, I mean, the big news this week, I feel like, has been the leadership changes that have taken place at Xbox. So I'll be giving a little bit of coverage of that. So to give the
I will say,
headlines...
before you get into this, sorry,
Alex, you son of a gun.
sorry, that I think perhaps some of our listeners might be surprised that we have not discussed this earlier, because this information came out, I think, the day after. In fact, we've got 2 news stories today, and I think both of them came out either the day after or possibly while we were recording our last episode. So I'm just saying that, I think the games industry is hiding their dirty laundry away from us specifically. This podcast, they're listening, and they know they've got to schedule everything to get the minimum amount of exposure to us. Yeah, we get you. I'm doing like that thing where you put your fingers over your eyes and then you put
Eyes
them to
on
the
you.
cameras. Eyes on you. Eyes on
Gesture.
you. That
Yeah.
thing. That's the just so our listeners can understand what's going on here and the strength of feeling we have. Anyway, continue, Ed. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, thank you for our pitiful excuses for bringing this news to you late, but please do forgive us. Yeah, so the big news is that the Microsoft Gaming CEO, Phil Spencer, has retired, and the president of Xbox, Sarah Bond, who's sort of seen as the obvious replacement, also announced her departure. And rather than that, Phil Spencer has been replaced by one Asha Sharma, who has, since 2024, been the president of Core AI for Microsoft. So given that Xbox are sort of still just about sort of technically on paper one of the big 3 hardware manufacturers, that could be quite consequential news. I do want to just remind our listeners that Microsoft and Xbox are under BDS, so I would recommend that regardless of anything, you steer clear of them for the time being.
Yeah, fuck them.
Exactly. But to the story, I'm gonna structure this by talking about each one of the main protagonists in this story in turn. So let's just chat about Phil Spencer a little bit. He announced his retirement on the 20th of Feb, which, for a bit of a behind-the-scenes look, it is indeed the day after we last recorded the Red Barrels podcast. So
Coincidence?
hence our terrible speed. But speaking of long gaps, there had been a very long gap from Phil starting to him leaving at Microsoft. He'd started in Microsoft in 1988, which is literally last century. It's impossible to imagine such a long period of time. It might shock you to learn this, but I wasn't even alive in the 80s. And nor was Sophie. Alex?
No, I wasn't. Alex, what about you?
I remember the 1988 Olympics in Seoul. I remember that.
And at that very time, Phil
television.
Spencer was starting as an intern in Microsoft. He took over Microsoft, or took over at Xbox directly after the sort of controversial failed launch of Xbox One. And initially he made a lot of basically pretty good calls that most of us sort of agree with. He was immediately looking forward to the next generation and talking about a new powerful console. He went back on their no backwards compatibility policy, and he had a hand in pioneering Game Pass. And things got off to a pretty good start. But as you know, Xbox aren't in a great position right now, so that good start didn't last for a very long period of time. And we've talked endlessly on this podcast about the issues that Xbox have faced. But I think one that goes underappreciated a little bit is they've just not had as many good games as you might want them to have. I think that's fair to say. I was listening to the YouTuber Skill Up, whose work I like. Not that I know them that well, I guess that's not an endorsement, but and he pointed out in his summary of this that since the Game Awards properly started in 2014, Nintendo have released 11 Game of the Year nominees, Sony have released 13, Xbox have released 1, which was Psychonauts 2 in 2021.
Wow.
So good start, but then he kind of made quite a big deal about how he was a gamer guy first and foremost, and yet under his leadership they've really not made any massive system sellers. So I think if we're going to think about why it might be time to move on from Phil Spencer, I mean, yes, he's retired, but was that retirement completely off his own back, or was he somewhat pushed? Or these things are complicated. I'm not going to get into that too much. I think we can identify the lack of sort of banging system sellers as one of the reasons why Xbox has declined under his tenure. I mean, the other big reason that we have talked about a lot more is, and this obviously is not, this is just my interpretation of events, but my understanding is that when Microsoft bought Activision Blizzard in 2023, shit kind of hit the fan. And this massive third-party studio was being prioritized with reportedly a great deal of pressure to get a fairly swift and emphatic return on Microsoft's investment ASAP. And that kind of was the beginning of the end for the Phil Spencer period in charge of Xbox. It sounds like from various reports that have come out that he was effectively displaced in this period, wasn't making so many of the big calls. And this meant that last summer there were rumors swirling that he was going to retire, to the extent that Microsoft had to put out a statement in July last year saying he's not retiring anytime soon. Well, I guess March the next year maybe doesn't count as soon. So his retirement has been on the cards. So yeah, I think just to sum up my take on Phil Spencer's time at the helm, it feels like he tried. I do believe that he genuinely wanted to do a good job for Xbox. He's like a gamer guy, I appreciate that. But I think it ultimately would be very difficult to say that he was ultimately successful, frankly. Like, it brings me no joy to say that. It brings me no joy to say that. But, let's move on to Sarah Bond. Sarah Bond became the president of Xbox just days after the aforementioned Activision Blizzard acquisition, which was in October 2023. And she was apparently crucial in getting that deal across the line. There's been quite a lot of criticism in the past couple of weeks of her work with Xbox. One that has been doing the rounds a little bit in the social media space is Tom Warren's article for The Verge. He, among other things, points out that the Xbox chief marketing officer left in June 2024, and since then the marketing team have reported directly to Sarah. Just 1 month later, Xbox launched their fairly disastrous Everything is an Xbox campaign, which to many successfully communicated that you don't need to buy an Xbox. And Microsoft's hardware revenue has declined now for 3 financial years in a row. Tom Warren also in this article claims that she has become quite unpopular internally at Microsoft. Apparently she has a kind of my way or the highway style of leadership. And obviously I can't comment. I have no further sources on that than Tom does. I don't know if that's true or not. But so while it seems like externally she might have seemed like the obvious next choice, the story is that internally perhaps it's seen as not that big a deal that she's not going to be the next CEO. Well, let's turn to the next CEO, Asha Sharma, the new CEO and Executive Vice President of Microsoft Gaming. She was formerly president of the Core AI division, and before that, she'd had a number of jobs, including working on messaging platforms at Meta. I'm going to have a think about, really the question on all of our lips is what impact is this going to have on Xbox? What does this tell us about the direction of travel? What she said about it? What does her history imply? Those would be the questions you'd be thinking. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the announcement blog post where she was announced as the new CEO, and she committed in that blog post to 3 things. First, to great games. Second, the return of Xbox. And finally, the future of play. Those were her 3 commitments. So regarding great games, she said, quote, "We will enter new categories and markets where we can add real value, grounded in what players care about the most." That's just a small extract from her paragraph there, but it was one that I wanted to flag up because I don't know what that means on the ground. Like, what does that mean? Enter new categories and markets? Well, like new genres of games?
Nice.
Are they going to
corporate.
diversify from game? Yeah. You're going to see a very clear trend of nice and corporate. I don't know. I do not know what that means. So that doesn't give me any indication about what's going to happen in terms of where Xbox are going to go. She also mentions in this section that Matt Booty had been promoted to Executive Vice President and Chief Content Officer. He had already been, and I believe still is, the head of Microsoft Game Studios. And given that I've just flagged up, they have not had that much success in terms of producing massive bangers that has attracted everyone to Xbox. Some people have raised their eyebrows at this. I guess from my perspective, it kind of makes sense to have someone to sort of, steady the ship. Bit of continuity is probably good when you're doing a big change. So maybe that's the logic. So returning to her Asha Sharma's blog post, she talks about the return of the Xbox. She said, quote, "We will recommit to our core Xbox fans and players, and to the developers who build the expansive universes and experiences that are embraced by players across the world. We will celebrate our roots and with a renewed commitment to Xbox, starting with console, which has shaped who we are. Gaming now lives across devices, not within the limits of any single piece of hardware. As we expand across PC, mobile, and cloud, Xbox should feel seamless, instant, and worthy of the communities we serve. We will break down barriers so developers can build once and reach players everywhere without compromise." So that felt to me very much like an attempt to please absolutely everybody, to be completely honest. It's framed as a return to Xbox, which to me, if you just said that, in the context of reading this, I would think, oh, okay, are they going to move away from the everything is an Xbox idea? That sounds like it would be an easy win amongst Xbox's core fans. People don't really like that. But at the same time, she's promising an expansion across PC, mobile, and cloud, which feels like the opposite. It feels like they're going to continue the everything is an Xbox trend. Yeah, she's also said in another interview that returning to Xbox starts with a console. It starts with hardware. Quote, "You will hear more about that soon. We'll have some announcements coming up. You will see us collectively investing here," end quote, which, kind of implies that she's talking about investing in hardware. But what does that mean? Investing more than you were investing before? Like, what is that? That doesn't mean anything necessarily. They're going to spend, they're going to spend some money on hardware. Like, yeah, of course you are. That makes sense. And finally, the future of play aspect. She addresses the AI elephant in the room, given that she had previously worked in the AI part of Microsoft's business. She says, as monetization and AI evolve and influences this future, we will not chase short-term efficiency or flood our ecosystem with soulless AI slop. Games are and always will be art, crafted by humans and created with the most innovative technology provided by us. So, no CEO was going to come in and say, oh, I love AI slop, actually. So her saying that she's against AI slop doesn't mean that we won't see more of it, like the same market pressures to create the cheapest possible game still exist.
Well, exactly. You could interpret that two ways, right? You could interpret that as like, we're not going to have AI in our games. Or you can interpret it as, we're only going to have the best AI in our games. It's not going to be slop.
And I think it's, right?
Innovative
feels
tools
like it's
there is very shady.
Exactly. I think
it's doing a lot of heavy lifting.
I read that as like, maybe we're not going to have like games that are completely dominated by AI, like pure slop. But we're going to have very good games. But we will be using a lot of AI. And she said in an interview with Windows Central, quote, "I think that with any new technology, it brings possibilities as a tool. But even more important, especially now, we need to draw lines on what we won't do." So I think she's saying, again, something that's meant to please everyone, which is that we'll use AI, but don't worry, we'll use it in a good way. So I'm not sure what I meant to draw
Famous
from
last
that.
words.
And while we're on the subject
like
of
how-
AI, sorry, go on, Sophie.
No, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but just that they're like, we need to draw the line on what we won't do. And it's like, okay, but you didn't. You didn't say what you're not going to do. You only talked in affirmatives, which is very funny.
We won't do AI bad. We will do AI good. So
AI good.
I'm sure that's cleared it all up for everyone, as it has for me. But speaking of AI, there's been some internet backlash, would you believe, to this entire escapade, this entire story. And
Who would have thunk?
Who would have thunk? One aspect of that has been the accusation that she's been using AI to write her tweets since she took over as CEO. I've been trying to look into where that's from, or like what's making people think that, and I really can't find any particular reason people would be saying that. Maybe I'm missing something. But if I'm not missing anything, my take would be she writes in this kind of enthusiastic but like not that clear, broad, essentially incredibly corporate like register. And that to me isn't evidence of AI so much as it's evidence that she has a comms team and has worked in a big corporation for a long period of time. So I don't really see that there's anything to that. I mean, that would be quite stupid. And I don't think we've got any reason to think that she would do something so silly. And she's publicly denied doing it as well, which obviously doesn't prove anything, but just should add that in. But yeah.
Maybe there's a little bit misogyny there as well, of just like, oh, woman in a leadership role can't write tweets. It's just like, yeah, I mean, that's just corporate culture. Like, yeah, that's how you're trained to write.
I think there's certainly, well, I wouldn't say certainly, but I feel like there's an element of that out there. I mean, I'll touch on that a little bit in a second.
I can't prove it, but it doesn't feel well-intentioned.
No.
We don't mind when men use AI. That's all I'm saying. Sorry, go ahead.
I think it would be sort of foolish to try and form any kind of really solid opinion based on what is really a series of loose, very vague promises from someone that like we don't really know. Like she hasn't really worked in this sector before. I've not been exposed to. I've never heard of her before this. I'm sure none of you have either. And she has been incredibly non-committal. I mean, and let me get another example of her being non-committal. This isn't from the blog post anymore, but again from that Windows Central interview that she gave. She was asked about bringing back Xbox exclusives, which again seems like a lot of gamers think would be a wise decision and also would like it to happen. And she said in response to that, quote, "Right now, I need to learn candidly about the why of these decisions, what we're optimizing for, and what the data says about the Xbox strategy today. That's the honest answer. I'm looking at lifetime value, not just what happened in a previous moment or in short-term efficiencies and things like that. The plan's the plan until it's not the plan," end quote. So, I mean, I guess that's quite honest. I feel like she's saying she does not know. She doesn't really know why that was made, and she doesn't really have the information to be able to make a decision on that, which is very honest. But again, I couldn't be committing to anything like less. Like it's so unclear what they're going to do at this stage that I feel like it's hard to get too worked up about any specific element of this. Personally,
I mean, it does feel like this all kind of went down very quickly. Like,
yes,
they like just decided she was going to do it, and then like, okay, well, I have to write something, and she had no ideas or vision coming into it. Like, there was something else she wrote. There was something else she wrote where she said like, "Oh, talking about the strategy, and I've heard these three words, and I can't even remember what the words were. They were just like fun and dynamic, just kind of boring corporate words like that. But just the fact that she said she's heard those words, not like I came up with those words, clearly implies that someone thought, okay, right, you're doing Xbox now, and we need you need to be like this, and this. That's how our business needs to be run." And she's like, okay. And then she writes a little press release, or has someone write a press release for, that's how short term or short, like a period of time, like there is no real strategy. She's just like, yeah, well, this is my first day. It's my first day, right? My first day.
I think there's definitely truth to that. I'd submit one piece of evidence. I mean, a lot has been made of her having no professional background in gaming, and a lot of people think that she doesn't seem to have much of a background in gaming at all. For example, well, not for example, but she shared on Twitter her top 3 games, which were Halo, Valheim, and GoldenEye. And she also shared her gamer tag, and asked for some recommendations. One user recommended Borderlands 2, and you can see that shortly after that, she then played an hour of Borderlands 2, which I found that quite entertaining. Just straightforward. Like, oh, great, that's a game. I'll play that one. I found that funny. But what we can also see from her gamer tag, it was kind of cute, yeah. What we can see from her gamer tag was she got her very first achievement in January 2026. So not exactly a long history of gaming on Xbox as far as you can see.
I mean,
her first game was
really
the
obvious.
Halo
She's
Master
a girl.
Chief Collection.
She can't be a gamer.
Fake gamer girls. We all know about it.
Fake gamers. Girls can't be gamers.
Yeah, and so maybe that speaks to the timeline involved. Maybe some point around January, she's like, "Oh, I should probably have played a game.
Fuck, I should play a game."
Yeah. And look, I don't think you need to be a gamer to run Xbox. Like, I don't think they have similar skill sets.
Yeah.
But of course, all things being equal, I think you'd probably prefer someone who's identical in all other ways, that someone did like have a history with the genre or the medium and they care a lot about it. But I'm not gonna, I don't think we should take this as an excuse to completely disregard this move. And I think a lot of people have unfortunately done that. And I think, speaking to Sophie's earlier point, I do wonder if there's quite a bit of misogyny out there in terms of people's responses. Maybe a bit of racism as well, in terms of just like how readily we are going to accept, oh, she's used AI for everything, oh, she doesn't care about games, she's not a real gamer, like blah 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 blah. Like, and that's not to say that she doesn't use AI. Like, she did work in AI, and her gamer tag is from January. Like, so I'm not saying that stuff's not true. I just wonder if there's the extent to which this has got out there makes me feel a little uncomfortable in terms of I'm not sure that people would be having the same response, like in terms of how emotionally I see people talk about this, if it was like a white dude,
Yeah, exactly.
To be
clear,
clear,
I don't think anyone would
these are fair criticisms. Like, AI is a real thing worth criticizing. Not having a history with the medium is something worth bringing up. But it's just the sort of like tone of it, the vibe of people like hyperventilating about it and acting like this is some sort of betrayal. Like, it's just like, I'm not sure about that, lads. Like, let's maybe de-escalate a bit.
They are hungry to invalidate her place in the industry. And I think it is just because it's like she's a woman and racism as well. I don't know what she looks like, so I actually have no idea. But Definitely, it feels
she's
like some
definitely not white.
misogyny.
I'm not entirely sure of her background.
Yeah.
She's definitely not white.
Definitely some. I don't know. Just in terms of like the eagerness there, the hunger to find something wrong with her and to say, look, well, this is why women shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Not in leaderships in games, but like shouldn't be in gaming at all. Feels very Gamergate.
Exactly. I mean, it's a go on, Alex. Sorry,
but there is just like an interesting kind of concept about being an authentic gamer. Like Phil Spencer originally got his job pretty clearly in part because he at least came off as an authentic gamer, right? Because he came in after the debacle of the launch of the Xbox One, where they basically they were kind of embarrassed that it played games at all, and they were trying to like really push that you could run TV through it and shit. And that went so badly. So they put in this guy in, and he's like, "Oh yeah, man, we're bringing back backwards compatibility and stuff like that. All stuff that gamers, capital G gamers want." And like, he turns up at E3 and gives interviews, and he looks like he plays games, and he genuinely does seem to be into games. But like, frankly, like by the numbers, he did a pretty fucking bad job. He didn't turn the Xbox One around, and then the Xbox Series consoles came out, and they did even worse somehow. So it doesn't really matter that much. I mean, I remember Nintendo, people really fucking loved, what's his name, Reggie Fils-Aimé. That dude came from like Domino's Pizza, I think, beforehand. Something like that. Some kind of a big American brand like that. That was not games. He seems like a nice guy, I guess, for a CEO type, but I've never really seen any indication that he has any particular insight or even interest in games outside of what his job was, despite the fact that like Jeff Keighley keeps bringing him onto the Game Awards and stuff. So just like the amount that it really matters, I suppose, is weird because as leftists, we would like true kind of artistic people are committed to the art to be entirely behind the production of it, but that's unfortunately not the world we live in. It is a big business, and that's mainly what the person's job is going to be. And I will say also, Sarah Bond.
can I interject on that actually?
Sure.
I think even under a beautiful socialist, future world, there's still potentially a place for people whose job it is to facilitate a wider organization. Like, and that's the point about the skill sets required to lead Xbox are not the same skill sets that you have from being a gamer. Like, I appreciate your point about it's good to be passionate about the thing that you work in, and hopefully you would be in a future world. But like, I just think it's true that you can be very good at a job that you aren't personally that deeply connected to the subject matter. Like most people who are good at jobs probably fall into that category. Sorry, go on, Alex. You're talking about Sarah.
Sarah Bond. That in article from The Verge you mentioned about her. I have to admit, I have not read that article, but I did hear a lot of kind of criticism of it. That basically it seems suspicious that this article comes out, that it turns out that all the problems at Microsoft are really the fault of the black woman second in command. And there are suggestions of which certainly I certainly don't, and I assume neither of you two do either. We don't have any like inside knowledge of what's actually going on, but like it's suspicious that this whole article comes out there like, the one they really hated was the black woman, and actually everyone loved Phil Spencer. He's such an authentic gamer, and he's a white man.
It did feel like quite a convenient story, but as you say, I've got no more evidence than anyone else about what's happened. So,
well, I mean, I have heard. I have heard that from. I have heard that from people who have maybe a little bit more insight into what's going on than we do. So who knows, really? But I do think.
I think also with any of these things, any kind of change of this kind, there will be various different people in an organization. I mean, it's a big organization, isn't it? That have lots of different views. I wouldn't go so far as to say that there would be like factions, but
sure there are factions.
There might be factions. I'm not sure if we've all been part of big organizations with different factions, but you can easily imagine a situation where
we're all part of the left. We're all part of the left.
We're all part of the left. We all know that there are people within an organization that brief against another faction within an organization. So really any of these like internal insidery sorts of things where it's passing a blame in some way, you should never take any of those things as this is the truth. You should take it as it's something that someone wants you to know, and why they want you to know that you're not going to be completely certain. I mean, regardless of the truth of it, it's interesting that they have said it. Like, I guess it implies what some of the factions are, what the terrain is inside Microsoft right now. But let's not get too much into the criminology of what's happening internally. But
I don't know. One day, Ed, we're going to get big enough that we'll have so many spies and informants that we'll be able to do a full episode where we explain who the equivalent factions in Xbox are. Who's the SWP of Xbox? Who's the who's the momentum of Xbox? Who's the RS21 of Xbox? One day we'll find out. We'll know.
Like an independent journalist. What's going on?
That'd be a special.
We can be anything.
That'd be a special series. A 6-part story breaking down the factional. Go on, Steve.
No, yeah, I mean, I just had I guess a final thought, which is just that I could just imagine that if the conversation were the other way around, where it's just like, well, this straight white man only made his fucking gaming account in January, then people would be like, well, yeah, he's a CEO. I wouldn't want him to waste his time playing video games, right? Like, I could see that conversation going in that exact same direction. It's like, unless it seems like unless you're Elon Musk, no other white straight man in charge of a company seems to feel insecure about how much or how good he is at video games. And that's because generally they don't need to. That's not like something they have to have on their resume. And it's like, you could tell the account was, I don't know, maybe I'm sympathizing too much with this person. Obviously, I don't know anything about it, but it's like, you could tell that the account was made in January because it's like, fuck, any criticism that's going to be leveled against me is going to be leveled against me like 10 times harder because I'm a woman, first of all. And then if they find out that I'm not a gamer, God forbid, God forbid the gamers find out.
I will say though, it is a bit weird because, I mean, surely if you have the control of the Xbox backend, you can surely just create a retroactive account that appears to have been in existence for like decades at this point. You could just put it in there. Who would stop you? I did hear some people saying that, like,
I'm a PC gamer, you know.
Maybe she is. I mean, she said one of her favorite games is GoldenEye, which was Nintendo game mainly, wasn't it? N64.
There you go.
So maybe she's just a diehard Switch fan.
It did get re-released like a year or two ago. So maybe it was then. But and you know, people were like, I saw people saying that, like, oh, Phil Spencer, yeah, he was a real gamer. You know, you'd see him on like Xbox sometimes, like see him online on there. It would happen, and I'm just like, yeah, he fucking ran Xbox. You don't think he can fake that? You know, I'm not saying he was faking it. He probably wasn't, but just like he can. It's not terribly hard to falsify that shit. I'm kind of surprised he didn't do that for her.
While we're talking about random things that strike me as bullshit, some people have alleged that there's no way she could have played as many games between now and January as gamertag implies, which to me feels like a baffling.
She's a fucking CEO. She does nothing all day.
This is a
She's
witch
got nothing else to do.
She's a game witch.
Exactly.
She's making up video games.
So let's wrap this up a little. Let's conclude this. I think the only thing that we can say from this is, in terms of predicting what the direction will be going forward, I think it's clear that they want to give the impression that there's a clean break, that they've sort of cleared house, that it's under new management, so to speak. But what they want to do that for is not clear. This could easily be a group of people who have been appointed to essentially sunset Xbox. That's certainly been the charge that Seamus Blackley, the creator of the original Xbox, has put forward. But equally, perhaps this is an attempt to draw a line under the damage that Xbox has done, that's been done to the Xbox brand in the last few years. You know, maybe revitalize it for a future consumer-based, console. Or perhaps this just works as a justification for the shift that we've sort of speculated about for a little while now, maybe a pivot towards a more premium hardware for the next generation, rather than being a true competitor of Sony's. We don't know. My personal instinct is that I personally, of those options, I don't think that Xbox is as big a deal to Microsoft as we would like to imagine. It's not that large a part of their revenue, not compared to Sony's anyway. And so I think at this time where Microsoft appears to be going completely all in every conceivable way into AI, it's a little hard for me to imagine that they want to put a great deal of effort and resources into reworking the Xbox brand, revitalizing it, turning it into a more consumer-friendly place. I just don't think that that's something that's on their agenda. So my guess would be, if I had to bet, I'd speculate that the overall trajectory is unlikely to be changed too much by this, is my guess, but I would be happy to be proven wrong. So I reckon still this works as part of their pivot towards the more premium hardware for the next generation. If those rumors are to be believed, I feel like this makes that a sort of easier sell and marks a demarcation point from the sort of old style Xbox to the new, exciting, expensive hardware of the future. But again, I think you'd be foolish to speak with any great degree of confidence about this because we really do not know that much. And that's what I'll leave you with, I think, in my take on this story. Any closing thoughts from you two, or are we happy to move on to story number 2?
I'm ready. Good job.
Ready to rumble.
Ready
Don't
to
say that. It's copyrighted. It's
rumble.
copyrighted. We're gonna get done.
Ready to grumble, I said. Grumble
grumble.
about
Ready
Ready
to
to
another
grumble.
the content of the next story, which
We're always grumbling. We're always
believe
grumbling.
my dear
What?
friend, comrade, colleague, mentor,
Oh.
apprentice, Alex will be
Ooh.
taking us through.
Wow.
Ooh.
Quick turnaround there. Yes, here's me. And we're going to be talking about some more. Well, I suppose, I don't know if we'd call the Xbox One bad news. I guess it's, maybe, who knows. This is the ushering to a new wave of greatness for Xbox. And, they'll also turn around and stop doing shit for Israel and we can actually play those games anyway. Probably not, though. But this is genuinely just bad news. Yeah, so Sony, or PlayStation, perhaps more specifically, has, in their grand beneficence, decided to summarily close the studio Bluepoint. Bluepoint were founded in 2006, and they did try and make, I think they started off with a game of their own called Blast Factor that no one particularly cared much about. But then they basically made a name for themselves, making remakes and remasters of other older games. So we've already, a few episodes ago, Ed, you did God of War. I assume that was the remaster, unless you broke out your
It was not.
PlayStation 2.
I broke out my PlayStation 2. It was not the remaster. It was the original.
Oh.
Well, back when you did
We're all
Demon's
so
Souls,
happy about
then
that.
that was the remaster, I remember.
It was. Back in episode 8.
Yeah, so we've talked about Bluepoint's games. They did a whole bunch of them over the years. They started off with the God of War collection in 2009. 2011, they did Eco and Shadow of the Colossus collection. They also did Metal Gear Solid HD collection. They've recently re-released Metal Gear Solid, so that shows how long they've been doing this
And
now. They did a previous
announced,
re-release of it.
They've announced the re-release of the God of War, future remasters of God of War as well. So
yes,
it's even...
that's going to be relevant in a moment. Then they did an Uncharted remaster of all those games, and Gravity Rush, which was a fun PS Vita game, which I think they did for the PS4. And then they actually properly remade Shadow of the Colossus. They instead of just turned up the resolution and frame rate and all that, they completely remodeled everything in the game. It's a complete remake. And then, as we just mentioned, in 2020, with a launch title for the PS5, widely considered the best launch title, I think pretty much no one would argue otherwise, they did Demon's Souls. So they were the remake/remaster guys. That's what they're known for. And now they aren't. Now they're not known for anything because they don't exist anymore. Yeah, so I think they literally announced this while we were recording, because I seem to remember finishing up and looking at my phone and finding out about it. So, yeah, they announced that they are, as I said, summarily shutting it down following, quote, a recent business review. They'd actually, previously, Sony didn't own it. As I mentioned, they did the Metal Gear Solid games. Those are owned by Konami. But in 2021, they bought them. So this is after Demon's Souls came out, i.e. their last game. Bluepoint never, and will never, apparently, put out a game while they were owned by Sony. What happened, it seemed, is that after they made Demon's Souls, they started work on a game that was a spin-off of God of War. And this was going to be their first, since that very early game, their first kind of original game of their own. And perhaps inevitably, it was a service game. It was going to be a live service game. And we all see how those have been going recently. Apparently, they had a lot of trouble getting it going. They couldn't really work out an angle for it. And at the beginning of last year, they ended that game. So they've not really been doing much for a whole year. Apparently, they pitched, so just to be clear, the one thing, I mean, this is what I assumed they were working on because, they hadn't put out a game since 2020. The one thing that everyone wants and seems straightforward that they would be doing was a remake of Bloodborne. Everyone loves Bloodborne, and that original game on the PS4 runs at 30 FPS, which is not ideal, especially for a game like that. And straightforwardly, that'd be a much better game, even though it's already great. Be a much better game if it ran at 60 FPS. And it seems like they've had ever since at least the PlayStation 4 Pro came out, they could have at least put out a patch or just like a very quick and dirty version that just did nothing else but run at 60 FPS. And they just haven't. And no one really knows why. And now it's been so long and there's new hardware. It's like, well, if you're going to do something, it should probably be a bit fancier than just a patch or even a remaster, probably a remake. Bluepoint didn't seem like they were doing anything, so it seemed like a really obvious thing that they would be doing that. And apparently, they kind of thought the same. There was at one point, apparently, a few years ago, and this is information from Bloomberg, by the way, Jason Schreier, probably the most well-known game journalist working these days, in terms of like news gathering anyway.
Present company excluded.
Except us. We don't, as I say, we don't get, as Sophie just pointed out, we don't gather much news. We just read out articles for our audience. And that's what they love us for.
That's mainly true. We have had interviews.
We have had an interview. That's true. Maybe that is news gathering, I suppose.
Yeah,
one day, gang. As I say, we'll find out who the SWP in Sony is as well. Yeah, so it seems that like at some point they actually expected they'd be working on Bloodborne and it just never happened. And after the God of War game got cancelled, apparently they did a full pitch to make a Bloodborne remake. And the word is that apparently it was FromSoft who blocked this. While Sony do own the rights to Bloodborne, they presumably don't really want to piss off FromSoft and Hidetaka Miyazaki, who is the designer behind Elden Ring and Bloodborne and Dark Souls originally, of course. And it seems like the word is that maybe FromSoft want to keep it to themselves and to do something with at some other point. They don't want to leave it to Bluepoint, which is maybe understandable from their end. But apparently the fact that FromSoft blocked this basically meant that Sony were just like, well, in that case, we're going to close you. And this has really caused a lot of upset. People just couldn't believe it. And it frankly kind of beggars belief. They are like objectively an incredibly talented team. Maybe they aren't good at like game design. Maybe that's their weakness because they've never, since that original early game, they've never put out a game that they actually made themselves. And that was maybe the problem with the God of War game, that they couldn't get the design right. But there's any number of potential remakes and stuff they could do. I mean, not that I'm particularly excited for it, but they could remake Uncharted 1. That's a PlayStation 3 game. It could probably look better. I mean, I'm not excited for that, but that is literally just a game that would probably sell pretty well that they could just do.
They did that, Alex.
No, they did a remaster.
Uncharted.
They did a remaster of it, like a full remake, full remake, just like their other games, like Demon's Souls. Yeah, they could do that. And then, that's just literally off the top of my head, right? There are all sorts of games that they could get the rights to that they could do a remake of. And remakes aren't maybe the most artistically exciting thing to work on. And I have heard from other people online that apparently they were kind of sick of doing remakes is part of the issue. But I mean, surely just to keep people's jobs and make a game that's probably going to sell all right, they could have found something for them to do. They were even a backup, a support studio for a bunch of games they did. They were a support. I guess one of the reasons they tried making that God of War game is that they were a support studio on the more recent God of War game. So it's just kind of Ragnarok, yes. It just seems bizarre. And apparently, yes, the fact that they announced just recently, that remake of God of War trilogy and Bluepoint weren't working on it. Within the studio, they kind of took that as a bad sign. because it would be like an obvious choice for that, right? So yeah, that's Bluepoint. I mean, there's not really much to say about it. It just seems like a real unbelievable tragedy that they just could shut down the entire studio just because they can't right now find something for them to work on.
I saw people really disappointed about it. Obviously,
Yeah.
I don't play any of the games that they remastered, or I have no association with it. But I just read a lot of like people being really just bummed about it, where they were like, "Why would you do this? You have loads of successful games from this studio, loads of like successful remakes and stuff, like really well-made remakes." So loads of people just really disappointed by it.
Yeah. It's just, I don't know. I mean, suffice to say, I mean, I think we're a broken record on this, but they probably should have unionized, and all the game studios should have unionized, and then maybe there could be some, some way of
And
kind
you
of standing
too,
up
listening
to
to this podcast,
You
should
also should
unionize.
unionize, yes.
You should unionize, listener.
If
Do
you
it
haven't
now.
already. Probably we have a higher
Yeah.
percentage of union members listening to
You'd
our
hope,
podcast than
yeah.
usual.
You'd hope, but
Yeah, you'd hope, yeah.
But yeah, if you're not, get on it.
get on it.
But yeah, I mean, obviously, if your parent company decides to completely shut you down, there's maybe not much that you can do for going on strike. But if then everyone else in the industry is unionized, the wider the collective, the bigger the collective action is possible. And eventually, once the whole world is unionized, incredible things can be done. But, even the smallest amount of unionization is useful and helpful. And just the bigger it gets, the more that can be done. Oh, Ed looked pensive. He brought his microphone up to his face. He looked like he was going to say something, but then when the time came, only silence.
No, I wasn't going to say anything in particular. I was just, it's just sad to see them go. I feel like it's an interesting niche to be in. The remaster remake people, and they've just done a really good job of it. I've played, I think, 3 of their remastered games, and I've felt very positive about all 3 of them. So it's sad to see them go, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just a BioWare for quality. I mean, they can on Ape Escape. Bring back Ape Escape. Do that. They've got to be Sony games. We just had Astrobot, in which basically every game Sony has ever made is like showcasing that game with a cute little robot. There's plenty to choose from there. Jumping Flash.
Yeah.
Bring back Jumping Flash. Bring it back. Ugh. Anyway. Yeah, sad news. And unfortunately, it's on that sad note that we must end. That's right. The episode's over. Again, we are still in the new order of podcasts. It's a weekly thing now. So
that's incredible news, isn't it? That's incredible news.
One day you'll find out.
After the sadness, there's only 1 week to go.
Good news, everyone. There's only 1 week left.
Yeah. Yeah,
Let us know what you think in the comments.
Yes.
Give us feedback. If you're out there and you're listening and you're thinking, gosh, I should really let these people know how I feel, put it in the comments. Comments.
Why not? Drop us a line. Tell your friends.
Yeah.
We're begging you. Tell your friends. Share us on social media.
At us.
We
are not significant personalities. Please talk to me. I'm lonely. Don't do that.
Get on your phone. Get on your phone. Add every single person in your contacts to a text. Tell them, listen to the Red Barrels podcast. It's what you should be doing.
Our listeners
every
blocked.
single person. Tell your grandparents. Tell your boss. Tell your boss from like 3 years ago you haven't spoken to in a very long time and never liked. Tell them. Tell them. Tell your childhood friend who you have never spoken to since you left school, but you still have them in your phone as a kind of wistful reminder of younger days. Tell them about the podcast. Everyone needs to know about the podcast. Everyone in your life. Tell your ex-girlfriends. Tell your ex-boyfriends. I don't care how awkward it is.
Tell your ex.
I got a bit heated there.
Your ex-them friends as well.
Yes. Non-binaries. If I find out non-binary people and you haven't told them about the podcast, I'm going to be very angry. And the best way you can have people contact us and so on social media is through Twitter at Red Barrels Pod and on Blue Sky at redbarrelspodcast.bsky.social. Personally, I'd also love to hear from you. Me personally, you can do so on at Alex Dean, ALEXDYN, and that's on Twitter and also on Blue Sky. Ed, how can people contact you?
Well, I'm at Not a Lemon on Blue Sky and at Still Not a Lemon on X. So perhaps I'll see you there. And
Maybe.
Sophie, pray tell, how can our dear listener get in contact with you?
I stream on Twitch, twitch.tv/SoFreely. And also, I think I'm on Twitter, and I never use this though. So come by and chat on Fridays, and you'll see my face, and I can say hello to you and be like, I love the podcast. Do that. Thanks.
An easy recommendation to anyone is Sophie's stream. Very, very high quality, high quality stream. Good quality chat. Sometimes she plays games.
Sometimes.
Sometimes.
Sometimes I play the games I talk about on podcasts, and sometimes I don't. Sometimes I just yap.
You can
love a yap.
This is your way to the true insight to the podcast. Yeah. Just think about that. Just think about the levels you can be acting. And you should do all that. As always, we had music from Brilliant Drink. You loved it. And Brilliant Drink made it. And yeah, that really is going to be it. So we're going to say goodbye.
Bye. Bye.
I think you both forgot to say that. You were like,
I
took
didn't
you by
forget to
surprise.
say it.
I was.
Well, you said it, but you
I
see,
started it.
but both of you.
I started it.
I know, but both of you look
From my
like you'd
perspective,
forgotten
I
that we were getting at the end. And we're going to say, you were like, oh shit, bye. That was the look on both of your faces. Oh shit,
No.
bye.
Definitely not. I didn't see that.
I was
I didn't see
waiting
that look
for
on
it.
Sophie's face either, Alex. I think you are just completely out of
I
line
think
with this one,
you-
buddy. Buster,
I agree.
kiddo.
Buster.
I tell it like I sees it. You both know that about me.